Welcome, everybody, to the Carriker Chronicles, the People's Show. Each and every day, we're checking the pulse of Husker Nation, and today is Fan Friday of the Day. Each and every week that I dedicate a show directly to you, wonderful fans at home. I answer all of your fan questions, whether it be NFL, general college football, workout, and, of course, Husker football questions as well. We do this as a live Q&A as much as we possibly can, so if I mess up or screw up, you will see it. You're welcome. Hopefully I don't mess up or screw up too bad, but this is one of my favorite days of the week, so let's dive right into our questions. And just so you know, I see my wife has 3 questions right off the top. Just so you know, I never look at these questions beforehand. So my wife always organizes them for me, and apparently she had some questions she wanted to ask. So her Twitter handle is @AngeCarriker if you want to follow her. Her first question of her 3 questions is the Mike Riley contract. What are your thoughts and reactions? My thoughts and my first initial thought and reaction was, why? Why are we, I don't understand, what has he done to earn an extension? Some good recruits and things of that nature, don't get me wrong. But as I thought about it and I kind of processed it, I think I understand it. I think I get it a little bit. What it does is it shows stability. You don't want to have a revolving door of coaches on a consistent basis for recruiting. You want to show that you have a stable coach, you believe in your coach, and it helps with recruiting. The other thing to keep in mind, coaches' contracts, they're going to add another year in December. Another year in December, I believe. So it's to send a message to the recruits now and when recruiting season really gets into full swing in December and January. So I think that's why they're doing that. But keep in mind, these coaches' contracts, they don't always mean a lot and things of that nature. So if they let them go, there's things in the contract where they're gonna cover themselves. Now, I don't know the contract in detail. I hope we don't spend a whole bunch of money and then have to let him go and then we waste a whole bunch of money. But it's one of those things where at first I was like, why? I kind of get it now. I put on social media I was conflicted. I'm still conflicted. I get the pros and cons. I'm still conflicted, but those are my thoughts. All right. Bob Diaco, defensive coordinator. He's in the booth during the games. Should he be on the sideline? I've gotten this question from a ton of people, as a matter of fact. So the advantage to being in the booth is you can look at the plays, you can break down the film as it's happening, right after the play is happening, so you know more in depth what's going on because you have a first-hand look, many angles, kind of like instant replay. It gives you that advantage you don't have on the field. The disadvantage is Mike Riley's an offensive head coach, so he's going to talk to the offense. He's not going to come over and talk to the defense. So on the sideline, who is that guy that rallies the defense after you give up a big play, when you need a big stop, when you're taking a timeout on 4th and 1 at the goal line? Who's the guy that rallies? Should be your defensive coordinator. So my thought is he did it at Notre Dame. He did it at UConn. Well, he was the head coach at UConn. He did it at Notre Dame. He's done it elsewhere where he's been up in the booth. It's kind of what he's used to. So I don't want to ask him to be someone he's not, but at the same time, other coaches can sit up in the booth and do those same things, get on the phone and call you, tell you what's going on, and you can relay it to the guys firsthand. So my preference personally would be that he'd be on the sideline and on the field. To me, it makes more sense. We have an offensive head coach who's going to talk to the offense, not the defense. But if that's what he's done and that's what he's been successful with, let's let him do his thing, at least in the beginning. Number 3, where is Devine Ozigbo? And she put in parentheses, where's Waldo? Kind of like those old Where's Waldo books. From what I understand, Trey Bryant will be able to play this weekend. I don't believe he's had a setback in practice this week. If he doesn't play this weekend, he'll definitely be good to go the following week, barring any setbacks. I know Coach Riley mentioned that his knee is a little bit older than he is, so I think that's why he's been a little bit protected throughout the spring game and fall camp. He felt like a NFL running back in the preseason that the coaches are protecting. That's what he always kind of felt like to me, but I never knew why, especially as a sophomore guy who's never started. Well, now we know why. But anyways, as far as Ozigbo, for some reason Bryant can't go, and I hope he can. It's one of those things where they've said they're going to do Mikhail Wilbon, and Jalen Bradley might get some reps as well. I'm not sure what's going on with Ozigbo. From what I understand, there's nothing that really stands out. No injuries. He hasn't gotten in trouble. Nothing's been publicized. Maybe he just hasn't played as well in practice. To me, he never did anything that stood out positively or negatively. And these other backs have, so maybe that's why. All right. Number 4, @NDumbCat on Twitter. Give this guy a follow. Great stuff from this individual. 3-4 time to panic or time to chill the F out? I think the latter, but what do I know? I think patience. I think patience is what we need because you got to keep several things in mind. Number 1, you got a lot of young guys on this defense. In fact, you've only got 3 seniors, you've got 3 juniors and 4 sophomores. You have more underclassmen than you have juniors or seniors. This is an extremely young defense. We had an injury in fall camp to Chris Jones, which affected our secondary, and some of the reverberates even now, I think, even in the defensive play calling. And so it's one of those things where you got new guys who are playing and starting and getting major action for the first time, and that's an adjustment. I'll tell you right now, that's an adjustment, especially playing at a place like Oregon, big first-time exposure, and they're learning a new defense. I was in my 5th year in the NFL when I went to a 3-4 defense, and we were doing drills, individual drills. I'd literally never seen them before in my life. I played football for 15 years of my life at that point. I've literally never seen him. A 15-year vet, Phil Daniels, was on the team, defensive lineman as well. He'd been in the NFL for 15 years, played football for 89,000 years because he was that old. I told him that to his face, so it's okay. I can say it here. He'd never seen him. And so the 3-4 especially, I mean, look at the D linemen in their stances. They're so squared up. They're back on their haunches. They look like they're in a frog stance. You know why? Because you're doing something completely different. You're not blasting upfield. You're moving laterally, and that stance allows you to do it, as funny as it may look. So patience. New scheme, new first exposure for a lot of these guys. Patience, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, they do need to improve, but I believe that they will. Next up, at Jake Russell. I know this guy well. Big-time Redskins fan. Big-time... He asked a question about Maryland. Big-time Maryland fan. Good dude. Give this guy a follow. He's rising in the media ranks there in the D.C. market. All right, so I know you and I will be watching Maryland win the national championship game together. The real question is where. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I would love to watch any game with you, Jake, even if it is Maryland. But I'm pretty sure they're never going to win the national championship. They won a national championship game in basketball, I believe, like 42 decades ago. I actually think it was about 15 years. I hope you enjoyed that because it may never happen again, my friend. All right, next up. At Mike Kasperi, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize. Are more players missing games now than 10, 20, 30 years ago due to injuries? If so, why? I don't have stats in front of me, but if I was to venture a guess, I would say yes. And I would say it's because guys are bigger, faster, stronger, hits are harder, collisions are more impactful. There's just bigger, faster, stronger guys hitting each other. So you can strengthen your muscles. It's really hard to strengthen cartilage and ligaments and joints. So the muscles are going faster, but the joints, they're still what they were, yet they're taking on more impact. So I think they are, if I had to venture a guess, and I believe that would be why, if I had to venture a guess on that as well. Next up is at SDAISS9495. I'm wondering how the tight end and H-back play will look going as we go further into the season. Now, Tyler Hoppus, our starting tight end. I like this guy. So if you don't know his story, a little bit of background about him. He had scholarship offers to other smaller schools. He turned them all down to walk on in Nebraska. All right, that means the guy spent a whole lot of money and took a whole lot of risk to start at the bottom of the totem pole. Now that he's a senior, he's our starting tight end. So I'm a fan of this guy. I root for this guy. I like this guy. Now that being said, I think he's done a fine job the first 2 games. I think he's going to continue to be reliable, accountable, do what he's supposed to do, and that's what he's going to be going forward. He doesn't quite have the big play potential as Ethan Carter had. A little bit of that ability that he flashed from time to time. But I like Tyler, and he's going to be one of those guys you can rely on to do his job like he is supposed to. Next up, at TTEICHMEIR. I would try to pronounce it, but I think I'd butcher it. Feelings on doing away with the Black Friday game tradition. So first of all, we're not playing Iowa anymore, and when I interviewed Coach Osborne, he called the Iowa rivalry a bit artificial, and I agreed with him 100%. Oklahoma, that was a rivalry. I hate the fact that we got away from that. And when I had Coach Osborne on, he said they wanted to continue it. Oklahoma did not. And so with the scheduling, that's why they only played Oklahoma 2 out of every 4 years instead of playing every year. Oklahoma didn't want to. Now, they were afraid of us. They were scared. But also, they have other rivals, Texas, Oklahoma State. So keep that in mind. I do miss that rivalry. Now, as far as Iowa, we were developing something. In 6 years, we were 3-3. I think something was developing and growing geographically. It makes sense. I was starting to see things on Facebook and Twitter. I would post things myself. Just got to poke the bear a little bit, have a little bit of fun. And it's one of those things where I wish we would have just kept it going because we really don't have another rival in the Big Ten. Penn State, not geographically, but just historically, could have been interesting. And at one time, they were going to be our crossover rival. But obviously, that's not coming to fruition. So it's one of those things where I wish we'd have kept Iowa going. It's not make or break. Now, Black Friday. I'm not going to lie to you. This I don't like. Is it a ginormous deal? No. Is it a bigger than average deal? In my opinion, yes, and I'll tell you why. Because to me, it's like a little bit of a demotion, a little bit of a slap in the face. Now, I've heard conflicting reports. I've heard this was the Big Ten's doing, and I've also heard that the Huskers were perfectly fine with it and kind of wanted to do it too. Sean Eichhorst kind of wanted to do it. Mike Riley has publicly spoken that he does not like Friday games, which is interesting. since he talked about player safety and fully being recovered, yet we're going to play Illinois here in a couple weeks on a Friday night that we agreed to play. But I guess we're not doing that anymore in the future because of the fan backlash, and it doesn't make any sense. But anyways, I like the Black Friday games versus Fridays during the regular season. The typical regular season, because you don't have high school football, and it's a different day. Folks have the weekend off. Folks have just enjoyed a Thanksgiving. Folks who don't want to stand in line for 89,422 hours for Black Friday deals are sitting at home watching football. It's a primetime game. It's primetime exposure. The recruits are getting to see you. We're going to play on Saturdays, from what I understand, going forward, rotating between Iowa, Minnesota, who's apparently going to be our next rival for a couple years, and Wisconsin. And on Saturdays, you got Ohio State, Michigan. You got Florida, Florida State. It seems like a little bit of a demotion. I don't know if it's from the Big Ten. I don't know if we're slapping ourselves in the face. Personally, I think it's a mistake. I don't really like it. It's a tradition we've had since 1990. Again, are we burying ourselves alive? No. But to use a wrestling term, since I'm a wrestling fan, we are burying ourselves just a little bit, or the Big Ten is one or the other. And the other thing I've heard the Big Ten wants to have the two best teams in the Big Ten West play at the end of every year. Given the rotation, which in their eyes is apparently Iowa and Wisconsin. And that is cyclical, because there's going to be years that changes. But I don't know. It didn't exactly thrill me. Oh, I should mention this before I move on to the next page of questions. I think I got 2 questions left. We are going to play Colorado in 2018 and 19. So there's a little bit of a rival. Let's be honest. They wanted to be rivals with us. They're the little brother that we never paid attention to. They did beat us a couple years, but it took 5 downs to beat Missouri all those years ago. And Oklahoma. I had mentioned this. We're going to play them in 2021 and 2022, I believe. So I'm excited for those particular games. All right, last 2 questions. At Melvin_1982 why do the Huskers play the Buckeyes 5 years in a row? Doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I believe there's 14 teams in the Big Ten. Maybe there's 22 now in the Big Ten, since it's the Big Ten. And the Big 12 has 10, and they're trying to go to 12. Anyways, math. So it's one of those things where I think it's just the way it worked out. It's probably more primetime television, Nebraska, Ohio State, although we're bumped from Black Friday, so I don't know. I don't know the reasoning. I don't know the logic. But it's not like with the Big 12 where you play everyone in your division and then you rotate 2 out of every 4 years from someone in the South, just because there's not 12 teams, so it's not that easy. And so I don't understand. I really don't mind it. I don't mind taking a shot at Ohio State. They're the supposed big dog now, so that's cool with me. All right, at Husker Salts. Okay, Adam, I know you was a D lineman, but I'd take any workout tricks/drills for my sons, both DBs and linebackers and wide receivers, running backs, 15 starting as sophomores. First of all, congrats, that's awesome. As far as tackling drills, it doesn't matter if you're on offense, you're hopefully not tackling anybody, but it doesn't matter if you're a DB or D lineman. Tackling is all the same. Drop the hips, head across the bow, bring the hands, drive the feet, wrap up, lay the smack down. That's what I would do. Practice getting low, head across the bow, which means head across the numbers right here, the shoulders right here. Get your head across, wrap up, and drive into the turf, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone wants to go for these top 10 Sports Center highlight type hits, which is phenomenal. If you're Jadeveon Clowney and you basically got national exposure off of 1 hit against Michigan. But if you want to make tackles play after play after play, Jadeveon's a good player, not knocking him. That's what I would do. Head across the bow, wrap up, drive to the turf. And as far as any workout tricks, hey man, tune in each and every Wednesday, Workout Wednesday. I showed a video of me doing a 550-pound bench press the first week and the very many variations. You got close grip, you got wide, you got regular, you've got alternating dumbbell on a bow shoe ball, all these different things you can do. It's not just some meathead's lift. For anybody who's working out, who doesn't have shoulder issues, and even if you do, just go close grip. There's so many things you can do with the bench press. It is the best overall upper body lift there is, even if you're not trying to lift heavy and you're just trying to be healthy. And if you are trying to compete, it's a phenomenal lift as well. And it's many variations as well. I talked about how I lost 100 pounds a couple weeks ago. This week I gave the top 3 most frequently asked nutrition questions. So we check it out each and every Wednesday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tune into my gut reaction tomorrow. That is the last question, I believe. Right after the Northern Illinois game, within 30 minutes or less, I will be posting my gut reaction to that game. It's always short, sweet, brief, to the point, and people seem to enjoy it. So check that out within 30 minutes or less of the end of the Northern Illinois game. And then on Monday morning, my full breakdown and statistical analysis of the previous Husker game against Northern Illinois. So See you later. Or hold on. See you next time. Bye. If you didn't see my show yesterday, you missed out. Go check that out. You know what I'm talking about. So until my gut reaction tomorrow, go Big Red. And always remember to throw the bones.